Grading every England player's Euro 2020. The rollercoaster that was Euro 2020 is over, and it was a memorable one for England for all sorts of reasons. Gareth Southgate's men made it all the way to the final, their first time there since 1966, and gave fans one of the most memorable summers they have ever seen. It might not have ended well, but the overwhelming feeling is one of positivity. Let's grade every player's performance. Pickford didn't concede a goal until the semi-final and was a driving force behind England's success. He made some excellent saves and looked like a real leader at the back, blossoming into the kind of players fans have always wanted him to be. There were no minutes for Ramsdale, who spent one game out of the squad before ending the tournament on the bench. Like Ramsdale, we didn't see any of Johnstone this summer. Southgate took a huge risk by naming Maguire to his squad, but the gamble absolutely paid off. After returning to the lineup for the final group game against the Czech Republic, Maguire looked like he hadn't missed a beat. He was dominant at both ends of the field and looked like one of the best centre-backs in Europe. A spot in the team of the tournament was well earned. Stones took a bit of a backseat to Maguire for the majority of the tournament, but there's nothing wrong with that. He was England's second centre-back and did his job incredibly well. Just 12 months ago, the idea of Stones keeping 5 straight clean sheets at the Euros was laughable. Now, it's a reality. Mings knew he was always just a stand-in for Maguire, but he did his job admirably in the first 2 matches, making crucial blocks in both. We've also bumped his grade up slightly for bodying Priti Patel on Twitter after the final. You love to see it. This tournament will have been a valuable experience for White, who always knew his chances of playing were slim. Another player to see 0 minutes, Cody still managed to boost his reputation with an important dressing room role that saw Steve Holland name him the player of the tournament. Shaw was glued to the bench for the first game, with Southgate preferring to go with an out-of-position Kieran Trippier, but the boss's eyes were opened soon after. Brought back in for Game 2, Shaw erupted and spent the rest of the tournament looking like the best player on the team. His masterclass against Ukraine in the quarter-final will live long in the memory. Because of Shaw's brilliance and Trippier's versatility, Chilwell spent most of the tournament outside the matchday squad. It was a slow start to the tournament for Walker, who stunk it up at Wembley in the opening game against Croatia. He was dropped from the squad for the Scotland game, but figured himself out upon his return. Spending his time switching between right back and centre back, Walker proved his value to England with some excellent performances, including a show-stealing effort against Denmark. Similarly unconvincing early on, Trippier was poor against Croatia and then didn't feature for the rest of the group stage. He spent the rest of the tournament as a reserve, only coming in when Southgate went for the 3-4-3 formation. Fortunately for Trippier, he was excellent in that setup. He was dominant against Germany and bagged the assist for Shaw's goal in the final. A solid shift for the Atletico man. James played just once this summer, and that outing just so happened to be in England's worst performance, the 0-0 draw with Scotland. James didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't do enough to force himself ahead of Trippier or Walker in the pecking order. If you want to know why West Ham value Rice so highly, just check out his highlights package from the summer. The 22-year-old was dominant against Denmark and one of England's brightest sparks against Italy. He's England's starting anchor, no doubt. Phillips almost ended up being a victim of his own stunning performance against Croatia in the opening game. He was absolutely sublime in that match, but didn't always maintain that level. That's not to say Phillips was bad, far from it. He fully merited his spot as an undisputed starter, but the only minor downside was his struggles to match the dominance of his first outing. Henderson didn't start a match this summer, and that's down to a combination of factors. He was carrying an injury in the build-up, but also couldn't do enough to force his way past Rice or Phillips. As a squad player, he absolutely did his job. He helped close matches out and even bagged his first international goal against Ukraine. A summer to remember, although it could have been so much better. Bellingham had his moment in the spotlight and held the record for the youngest player in Euros history for all of a few days before Kacper Kozlowski took it from him. The teenager only managed a few cameo appearances towards the ends of matches, so we didn't get to see as much of his as we would have liked. Despite a COVID-enforced blip early on, Mount was in line for a higher grade before a frustrating performance in the final. He shone in the knockouts, grabbing an assist against Ukraine and picking Denmark about in the semi-final, but Italy's midfield was just a little too much for him. After an underwhelming season with Manchester City, Sterling stole the show at Euro 2020 with stunning performance after stunning performance. Had England won in the final, he would easily have won the Player of the Tournament award. Fitness struggles meant Rashford probably should have stayed home this summer. He wasn't healthy enough to start and was only given short bursts off the bench. Rashford didn't do much in his limited minutes, and he came up short in the final when he sent his penalty crashing wide off the post. A tricky few weeks for the forward. Copying Gazza's haircut was a bold shout from Foden, and it didn't really pay off. He nearly scored with his first shot of the tournament, but saw his involvement peter out slowly after that. He started the first two group games and then saw just 25 minutes off the bench against Denmark, which, admittedly, were pretty solid. Just not enough. If Grealish had any doubts over how beloved he is by English fans before the tournament, he'll be well aware of his fame now. He had to settle for a limited role, but Grealish caused a deafening roar just by getting up to warm up. He had good games against the Czech Republic and Germany, but will have wanted more minutes. With a £73 million move to Manchester United going on in the background, it's safe to say that most expected a little more from Sancho this summer. The winger only made 3 appearances, 2 of which made up a combined 7 minutes, and he also missed a penalty in the final. Sancho excelled in his only real opportunity against Ukraine, but that was all we got from him. After he was given the nod for the final group stage game, Saka didn't look back. The 19-year-old was superb against the Czechs and Germany, and after sitting out the quarter-final through injury, he did a solid job in the semi-final. A missed penalty in the final shouldn't detract from his success. Kane's final grade is dragged down by an abysmal start to the tournament which saw him do almost nothing in the group stage. Amid rumours of a £150 million transfer to City, it's safe to say Kane was a little underwhelming. Fortunately, he picked himself up in the knockout stages, bagging 4 goals in 3 games to help England through to the final, where he was as underwhelming as the rest of his fellow forwards. Calvert-Lewin played a predictably small role behind Kane and was limited to just 18 minutes across 2 games. The Everton man was left out of the squad for 2 of the 4 knockout games as well, with Southgate making it abundantly clear that he was only there to make up the numbers. Plus, he was exposed for being awful at darts.